Fargo Bank. Hi, I'm Catherine Gray, founder of She Angel Investors and co-founder of the She Angels Foundation. I'm also the podcast host of Invest in Her and an award-winning producer, author, and TEDx speaker. Our show, Invest in Her, features phenomenal female founders and funders. As you know, women receive less than 2% of venture capital funding. Our series is about accelerating the funding of women by connecting them to funding resources. Let's meet today's guest.
Great.
Welcome to this week's episode of Invest in Her. I'm your host, Catherine Gray, founder of She Angel Investors. And as you know, the good news is more and more women are starting their own venture capital funds. So today, I'm very excited to have on one of those founders of a new venture capital fund called Chloe Capital. I'd like to welcome to the show, Elisa Miller-Out. Hi, Elisa. How are you?
Hi, Catherine. Thanks for having me. Great to see everyone here.
You bet. Well, I love having on founders of female-founded venture capital funds because they're accelerating at a pace that we're capturing in this movie that we have coming out called Show Her the Money. And it is about the fact that we get less than 2% of venture capital funding, women do. And so I'm always excited when I find another woman who has started a venture capital fund. So right up front, thank you.
You're welcome. I agree. The world needs a lot more diversity in this industry altogether. No question. If we're going to solve big problems in the world, we got to do it with all different voices at the table here for sure.
Right. And I love that Chloe Capital is, focused, as most of these female founded funds are, on helping women, but also encouraging more women to invest in the funds, right? We definitely need more female angel investors. That's literally what's going to move that 2% needle, because as you and I both know, people do tend to invest in people they identify with, which is really put us behind the 8 ball in the venture capital world, since it's usually mostly white men, and they give money to mostly white men. And so, yeah, therein lies the problem, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think this is a really important area and point that you brought up here, because I think there are so many women at the table who often are able to invest and are accredited investors, and honestly don't even realize it, or don't even fully know where to get started in this space, or don't realize that this is an incredible opportunity that can be accessible to them, and an opportunity to make a tremendous impact. I know that a lot of women get very involved in philanthropy and sit on a lot of incredible boards, but often when it comes to investment, they sometimes say, oh no, that's that's maybe what my husband does, or I have someone who does that for me, but maybe don't realize that they can play this incredible role in helping women entrepreneurs and fund managers get started and launched in their careers, and make an incredible impact and financial return in the process. We've done a couple things to address that specific issue, because it is a profound one. I think a lot of folks don't realize that even for sometimes the amount of money that people spend on a handbag or a really nice pair of shoes, they could actually be helping a startup launch their journey and actually make enough money back to get 10 more handbags or 100 handbags, instead.
Totally. I love that analogy. Now you're really talking women's language, right?
And help in the journey for real. We talk about how people like to revenge shop. They should instead go out and revenge invest, So in any case, what we do at Chloe is a couple of things. One is that we have our impact investment course that we actually offer for women who are on the fence about this and just looking to kind of learn a little bit more about the space. We have that live on our website. That's basically a course that gives folks just the basics to make them feel a little more comfortable with the angel and venture capital space, and a little bit more breakdown of how it works. We also do that deliberately for our founders themselves to go through the course, so that they can learn about investing even while they're on their founder journey. Because we like to say one of the things we're doing at Chloe is transforming founders into funders. So what we're doing is, as they're on that founder journey, they can take that course, they can get involved in near-peer mentoring and role modeling for other founders through our accelerator programs, and then they can turn around, and then as they have their their big exits from their companies, they can turn around and write checks to other founders. And that's how we really build the ecosystem, build the movement, and really change those numbers and move the needle in a meaningful way so that women and people of color are actually getting their fair share and the proper appropriate percentages of the industry, as opposed to this 2% or less, that we're seeing right now. So that's one of the ways we're looking to really move the needle on that piece. And I'll say one other thing on this, because it's a point that I'm really passionate about in terms of getting more women investors to the table, is that one of the ways we started Chloe Capital was our very first accelerator program, which was about 6 years ago, was actually, we founded it by bringing together a group of women who we thought exactly fit that profile. It was all women who had some high, a decent amount of net worth, enough that they could have some extra money to invest, but they were maybe investing it in more traditional ways, right? Just investing it in the stock market or in their retirement fund in other ways, and didn't recognize that there was this other opportunity. We brought them together with a group of incredible experts in the space, some folks who had been leading the way in this space, some pioneers like folks from Trish Costello from Portfolia, who'd been doing great work in the space for a while. We had folks from Golden Seeds there, which was one of the original angel investment fund groups for women, and representatives of several different groups like that who could come to the table and help teach all of us about the space. With that, we brought together a small group of founders as well. We all met up together. All the women put in for that very first investment, $5,000 each. That was it. So a pretty accessible check size for a lot of folks who might have, 50,000 or 100,000 or hundreds of thousands or millions in their retirement funds. So, so 5,000 each they put down, and we put down one $50,000 investment all together as a group through that first accelerator program. And it was so successful that we, built on that and actually set up multiple accelerator programs. We've now done, dozens of them all around the country at this point. And we built on that and success, and also, raised other subsequent vehicles, and then raised our first fund for Chloe Capital, but all sprang out of that initial accelerator program. And I'm happy to say that, one of the early success stories from that very first accelerator, we brought together, 5 founders. We couldn't invest in all of them right then because we only had that one tiny check, but they were all fantastic. So we invested in some of them later, as soon as we had raised a little bit more capital. So one of those ones that we've invested in after that next tranche of capital was an amazing company, Savitri Wilson, from a company called Resilia, which is a software platform for nonprofits. She's now working with some of the largest foundations in the world. Incredible platform that she built. She found her from New Orleans, which was my hometown. So I was very excited to bring her to the program. And I'm happy to say that, when we met her early in her journey, introduced her to some of her first early investors and some early customers, and got her connected with a lot of other great powerhouses in the women in investment space through that initial accelerator. She has now made history by raising over $50 million and becoming and raising in her Series B round, the largest round ever for a solo Black woman entrepreneur in America. She just got an incredible write-up in Forbes. She's been all over the media, total superstar. And it's just so exciting to see when your thesis really does play out in this amazing way, where you can see it come full circle, that these founders who, again, as soon as they get that access to capital, resources, and networks, we know that they can take their companies up into the stratosphere. And for those who are wondering, there's no lack of pipeline or talent out there in this space. You're not going to be sacrificing anything by investing with a gender and diversity lens. In fact, it's the opposite. It's the best kept secret and the best opportunity in the investment world today, from our perspective, and one that's unfortunately overlooked by way too much of the industry right now. But,
I agree with you. And what about that 50,000? Have those people already seen a return? Or is that something that'll happen when there's an exit of that company?
Yeah, absolutely. That company was acquired later on, and we've had some other really successful exits down the road. That one was a much smaller exit. It was very much our first, but we did see some other really big ones that came just shortly thereafter, which was great. Like with our fund, we just had our first big exit from the fund that we just launched recently, and that was a company called BasePause that's in the genetic testing space for animal health. And And that company just got sold to Zoetis, the largest animal health company in the world, in a really substantial deal size that made a really nice return for our early investors. So,
and I want to explain that to
that.
people listening, because you and I both know, like, so many terminologies are thrown around that the average investor doesn't understand. And I think that's why they have that fear factor. But, you know, an exit, of course, means that they sold their company, got acquired, and that usually interprets to a nice return on your investment, more so than you probably would be making in the stock market or in real estate. And that really is the point here, isn't it? That at the same time that you're taking part of your portfolio and investing in funds like Chloe, that you're doing impact investing, because you're making an investment into a woman that otherwise probably wouldn't be getting funding. So you're part of that solution. It's very exciting because you're investing in something new and innovative that probably the rest of the world hasn't even heard about yet. And then the icing on the cake is getting that nice return that is more than you would probably get somewhere else. And the beauty of this type of investing, I think that people don't understand, and it's one of the reasons we're making our movie called Show Her the Money, The Power of Funding Female Founders is the tagline, is because sometimes I think women are afraid to invest in something they don't understand. The beauty of these venture capital funds like Chloe is that you're pooling your money with other investors, and you're depending on those, what's called general partners, you all that are running it, that have the expertise in vetting these companies and picking the winners. They have that ability that they don't have when they're placing money in the stock market, really, unless they have a wealth advisor. But, you know, it minimizes the risk, really, if you're putting it in the right hands with people who know how to vet it. And it's kind of like, I look at it like an index. So instead of being an angel investor in one company that may take off or may not, it's incredible to be able to put your money with other people in this type of index and have those smart general partners like yourself decide where that money is going. Much better chances of it being a successful investment. And to what you said in the very beginning of the interview, I think a lot of women don't invest in it just because they don't know about it. They're like, venture capital, what is that? How do I get involved? And that's what we're all trying to do right now with this program and with the movie, is pull back the curtain and say, ladies, look at venture capital as a possibility of putting part of your portfolio. With women coming into trillions of dollars in the coming decade, we have to be sure that they know that this is a viable option of where to invest, and a fun one too, right?
100%. No, I love that. And just to pile on a few things, a few notes here about, how folks can kind of break this down and think about it. So one is just for that exit I mentioned, for example, that was a 50% return on investment over just 6 months. We only held that company for 6 months.
Wow.
So we're going to see some really dramatic, returns here, which is very exciting. Some things to keep in mind about this space and kind of how it works when we do say things like exit and liquidity event and how that works in the venture capital space. So venture capital is part of the private equity spectrum. So we see it as the kind of the earlier stage private equity, typically, in terms of how we look at it in private equity altogether. And when I talk about private equity, all I mean there is just the companies that are not on the stock market. They're not publicly traded. You can't just go and buy their stock at a typical brokerage, right? That means they're privately held. The companies are typically owned by the founders and a group of investors, whoever comes in. The way to get access to those privately held companies is often through either a venture capital firm like ours, or sometimes by becoming an angel investor and developing relationships yourselves with some companies, which can be another great way to do it, or joining an angel group and meeting companies that way. It's
great explanation, by the way.
Yeah.
Great explanation. You really simplified it.
Yeah, and it's important to recognize that this is an area that, that more people can get involved with and can get access to. And these days it's actually easier than ever because the rules around it keep changing and evolving. So there's access even now to things like equity crowdfunding and ways that you can kind of jump on platforms and spend very small, tiny amounts of money, like as low as a few $100s, and invest directly in companies, even as a non-accredited investor. And let me define some terms here as well. So when I say, accredited investor, non-accredited investor, and when I talk about kind of who can get access to this space, there are opportunities for folks at all levels to get involved. So when I say accredited, that just means at a certain income level that's defined by the SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission, and that can be anything from, around $200,000 in income for an individual annually, or $300,000 for a couple, or a $1 million net worth in your family household. That's not including your primary residence as part of that. There's a lot of folks who actually meet that threshold and don't fully realize that this avenue of investment is open to them. There's also a lot of folks who are non-accredited investors and don't quite meet those thresholds, but don't realize that there are opportunities for them as well. So a lot of the equity crowdfunding platforms are open to non-accredited investors. There's also philanthropic capital opportunities available for non-accredited investors where they can actually invest directly in funds like Chloe Capital and others through a donor advised fund, which is a philanthropic vehicle where they can basically, donate money, get a great tax deduction on their capital, just like they would with any charitable expense, but they can actually then maybe double, triple, quadruple that money in their charitable account. And in the process, invest in all these incredible women entrepreneurs and fund managers, and then have more money to put towards a charity of their choice at the end of all of it. But in the meantime, they've made this incredible impact along the way, created lots of jobs, helped build communities, and more importantly, with the work we're doing at Chloe, helped solve some of the biggest problems that we face in the world through innovation and through more diverse innovation, right? Because we know we can't solve things like climate, education, health, the big things, challenges that face us, all of us as humans. How do we solve those problems without looking at them from multiple different perspectives? And how do we have true innovation without diversity? For us, those things are all inextricably linked. We need to solve problems coming at them from multiple perspectives so that we fully understand even what problems we're solving. That is what our founders are out there in the world doing today. And that's the kind of opportunity that folks have in front of them with this class of investment. To me, it's a no-brainer, but I've devoted my whole life and career to it. Other folks, if they want to even just come in for a little tiny slice of their time, I think it's still they can get incredible results.
Yeah, well, all well said. And I love that, you yourself have been a successful entrepreneur, acquired and then taken your success to start Chloe, to then allow yourself and others to invest in other women, like you said, paying it forward. So I always encourage women, who are successful to, look at this as a investment alternative, and also, like you said, for the founders who have had success and want to pay it forward, or plant the seed that they will do that in the future. So thank you so much. You have just been a wealth of information, which I love for the show to be, and an inspiration to us all. And how would they get a hold of you? Like if they want to take that course that you have on your site to learn about being an investor in Chloe Capital or in venture capital, what is your website and your social, Elisa?
Absolutely. Folks, I'm really easy to find. It's Elisa Miller-Out and Chloe Capital, and chloecapital.com is our website. You can reach us right at info@chloecapital.com. We'll see your message right there. We're also, we're all over social as well. It's Chloe Capital almost everywhere you look for us, pretty easy to find. Like we're at Chloe Capital on Twitter. Luckily, if you name your venture capital firm after a woman, there were so few people who took that brand name that we were able to get all of the social media and all of the websites, and no problem. There just weren't quite enough women in venture capital at the time when we started our fund. So that ended up being a little great perk for us. The other thing about me is I have a pretty unique name, so I'm very easy to find. My website is just elisamillerout.com, and so you can find me there on my personal website as well. And I'm the only, I think, Elisa Miller-Out in the world as far as I know. So there's no one else who has my exact name. So So really, really easy to find online for that reason.
And that's really hard to come by. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Elisa, thanks so much for your time. Please check out Elisa Miller-Out and also Chloe Capital. And thank you so much for tuning in. Of course, you can find us on Instagram, Catherine Gray at Invest in Her. And also visit our website, sheangelinvestors.com, which also you can find on social media, She Angel Investors. And also be sure to follow our Instagram for our movie called Show Her the Money Movie. We look forward to screening that later this year. Please follow us both. And thank you so much for tuning in. Remember to invest in another woman, invest in her. Make it a great week, everybody. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks so much, Catherine.